Hello! Today we're going to be talking about who killed the Jeff Davis 8. If you are easily triggered by topics of murder and or death, stuff involving drugs, stuff like that, please skip forward this video. I have tons of other videos that you can watch that are light topics, but I am really passionate about this case and something needs to be done. So, on May 20th, 2005, a guy by the name of Jerry Jackson, I think? Yes, Jerry Jackson was going fishing in Southwest Louisiana he was like in this bridge type, like fishing over this bridge, and he noticed that the outline of a body before he cast his line, and it had been on the news that there was actually mannequins that had gotten stolen, and so he thought, oh, surely it's just maybe one of the mannequins somehow ended up in this area. However, he quickly noticed that flies were starting to attract around the outline of the body, and he thought, okay, well, flies don't attract mannequins, so this is definitely a dead body. And he panicked. He called 911, and soon there was a team of like at least a dozen sheriffs and detectives, and it was later known that a body had been recovered. This dates back to May 20th, 2005 is when he had made this call. And the body was of Loretta Lynn Chasen Lewis, who was a local prostitute. It's important to note that that really shouldn't matter in this situation, what someone's work is or does, whether they sell drugs or whether they're a prostitute. They don't deserve to be murdered. And so between 2003 and 2009, the bodies of 7 more women had actually come up, and I'm looking down at my phone so that I remember their names. So Ernestine Marie Daniels Patterson, Kristen Gary Lopez, Whitney Dubas, Les Siona Muggy Brown, Crystal Shea Banat, Zeno, Brittany Gary, and Nicole Guillory. And this took place in a town of less than probably about 10,000 people, so it was a very small town. And what's really particular about this case is that they actually, some of those women were blood related, and other of them, like others in that category, had actually lived together. They were all really aware of each other, and they were aware that murders were taking place, and they were scared that they would be next. And unfortunately, that's what happened for the last victim. Is she basically was very scared that she would be in that place, and that's exactly what happened. And so the task force had essentially made it out to be that there was a serial killer on the loose. And now keep in mind, this is a super small town, so the fact of that there are 10,000 people, word gets around fast, and somebody knows something or knew something, and they either wanted to protect someone or, you know, not get in trouble or something like that. And basically, behaviorists said that this is not typical of the behavior of a serial killer, because serial killers do not typically go after people they know. They typically go after strangers and have no correlation with them or relationship with them. But another thing, again, that was evident is that all these girls had at one point either known about each other and had worked with on like the same things, or they had been related. And so this was scary. And there was speculation that police officers were actually involved in this, and nobody really wanted to acknowledge that because people wanted to like protect the police and stuff. And to this day, in 2008, they had actually brought in a team to try to figure out who had done the killings, and they had increased basically the reward from like 30 something grand to 80 grand. This is when they were really like set on the whole serial killer thing, and like I said, behaviorists were just like, this is not of a serial killer. What are you guys talking about? And so, you know, it's important to note that cases like this can remain open for years and even decades. There was actually a case that I know of that went all the way back as far as like 2005, 2004, and so it's not unusual for cases like this to go unsolved for such a long time, because one, our technology has advanced so much that now, you know, people are getting caught. Just take the Golden State Killer, for example. He was very good at hiding, and when you're in that small of a town, you are probably can be really good at hiding. And so there were interviews done of the witnesses, and they basically said that they all knew each other pretty intimately, and Loretta Lewis, she was one of the first victims. She had actually made complaints to the police chief about her activity at the end because she was a prostitute, and essentially, you know, when you engage in that kind of stuff, it can be risky, but I'm saying this to be clear, that does not account for you to be murdered. And so this is why it really was pointing to that the police and the sheriffs have something to do with it, definitely, or, you know, there's a lot of suspicion around there is what I should say, allegedly, because when somebody makes those amount of complaints, 8 complaints, that's a lot of complaints to ignore. And essentially, they all shared life, like their life together, and they were all closely knit. And I am making this video to call to action. If you were a witness at this point in time in this city, please come forward with information. It is so important. The victims' families are hurting, and they've been hurting for years, and I can only imagine the desperation they feel to have this case be solved, and someone out there knows something. And please just come forward with information for the victims' families for this case to finally be solved and have justice for these families, because they deserve justice. They deserve closure. And I'm going to link down below a Twitter that talks about the Jeff Davis 8 case and is very closely connected to the family, is I think a cousin, if I remember right, of 2 of the victims that were unfortunately found murdered. Another thing about this that is really important to mention is that with the cause of death, only one of them could be determined, but the other bodies were so far along with their decay that nobody really knew. Like the coroner didn't know, but he suspected asphyxia, which is essentially the strangulation of someone, and so that's another important tidbit. But again, if you are someone with any information, please come forward. It is such a small town that somebody has to know something, and if you do know something, I can only imagine the guilt that is held, and if I were in that position, I would want to clear my conscience and just be honest about it and, not live with that for the rest of my life. So again, I will link that Twitter in the description. There's also a Docu-series, I believe it's on Showtime, that you can watch called Murder on the Bayou. It's a 5-part series that you can watch to learn more about this case. And with that being said, please advocate for victims that go through these terrible things. This is so important to not only me, but to tons of people, especially the families and stuff, and the hurt that they feel and the longing just to have closure and have answers. Everybody deserves that. So with that being said, that's today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and sorry it was kind of on the heavier side, but it's something that I really felt needed to be done, and I would like to spread more awareness about it and call to action. And if anybody, like I said, has any information, again, please come forward about it. And as always, I will see you next time. Bye!